In October 2016, two teams and 20,000 fans meet at Staples Center in Los Angeles for the ultimate showdown. On the blue side is SSG, a group of 5 competitors sponsored by the South Korean tech giant Samsung. And on the red side is SK Telecom T1, an elite force sponsored by Korea's largest wireless provider. They gather here in LA for the final championship. The game is League of Legends, a 2011 multiplayer online battle arena. The prize? A $6.7 million pot for the winning team. The stakes? International glory and the spectatorship of 43 million unique viewers throughout the course of the game. That's twice the number of people who viewed the 2016 NCAA Championship and twice the number of people who watched the 2016 FIFA World Cup. In the end, SK Telecom emerged as the victor. Each of the final teams had persevered through 75-hour-long matches and traveled across the nation from San Francisco to the Chicago Theater to Madison Square Garden and back to the West Coast. At last, SKT hoists the Summoners Cup into the air and is crowned the greatest League of Legends team in the world. Competitive video gaming is as old as gaming itself and began with games like Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat and the competitive street scenes that popped up at local arcades. Fast forward to 2000, and a company called Red Annihilation hosts the first esports competition for a third-person shooter called Quake. The prize was a new Ferrari. After that, organizations like the Cyber Athlete Professional League and Major League Gaming were formed for the third-party adjudication of shooting and action games like Call of Duty and Halo. These organizations, similar to the NFL and NBA, have recently died out in favor of the developer of the game serving as the final judge for the competitive scene. In order to figure out how competitive gaming went from this to this, we need to break down the elements of rhetoric present in an esports broadcast and the larger industry as a whole. Twitch is an online streaming site that concentrates on providing gamers with a means to broadcast to a global audience. This is a monumental change in the broadcast pipeline in media and virtually eliminates all gatekeepers from the process of streaming one's own original content and redesigns the delivery system of sports media.
Right now, we don't have such huge payrolls for most esports players that they just go to their tournaments and play their sets. You kind of have to cultivate a viewership and a fan base actively and stream on Twitch regularly and talk to people and engage with the community in a personal way. And so that means players like Armada, who's the best Melee player in the world right now, he has a Twitch stream and he plays, several times a week, if not daily. And you can go on there and you can watch that stream and you can ask the best player in the world a question about the game and he'll answer it. And that's something that's incredibly valuable for an overall community because you have, it's flat in a way. You can be just starting at the game and you can talk to Armada. You can ask, you can ask Michael Jordan how he plays the game. And being able to do that for not just that top player, but for the second best player and the third best player and the fourth best player, you can go onto their streams, you can watch them practice whenever you want, you can see what their routines are, you can see how they've gotten better, you can ask them how they got good and get their theories on the game, and everything is so accessible, so much more accessible, and I think that's really healthy for upcoming communities.
First, Twitch enables each broadcaster to have their cast appear in a section with those who are playing the same game, streamlining the communication of the topic of the stream. Next, streams are unfiltered and lack mid-roll advertisements, mentions of network, or other conventions of television. How, then, does the platform make any money? Viewers use the chat box to type in donations using Twitch Bits, Twitch's proprietary transaction currency.
I think esports players are more media makers than traditional athletes. So not only are you required to make sure that you can compete at a very high level, it's very well known that the more common career arc rather than just making your living off of tournament winnings, is by being a frequent streamer and having your own YouTube channel and making sure that you are getting sponsorships, donations to Patreons and this kind of thing. And so that is actually what you spend your time doing almost as much, unless you're just like the top of the top, right? But then if we're going to actually have a large player base of people who are playing competitively, not all of them can win, right? And yet they still want to be making a living. It is not as familiar as texting your friend, yet it's not as distant as watching like a late night comedy talk show on television. It's this interesting middle space where there is like a host for the show on someone's Twitch stream, but then there is this new kind of familiarness that is kind of novel for those kinds of broadcasts. So the whole point is, like, you're not just following that as a great competitor, that you sort of kind of feel like they're your friend.
Institutional rhetoric gives esports not only a sense of conceptual cohesion, but also a shared language that empowers and solidifies communities in the competitive gaming arena.
I think one of the biggest things is professionalism. If you look back, at least particularly in the Smash scene, back in the early 2000s, right after Melee had been released, everything is very, very, very casual. And so no one has good mics, no one has good video cameras, no one even has like proper recorded footage of the game. It's people pointing their cassette tape cameras at CRTs, and that means that a lot of like the most famous videos are would never happen today. So if you look at like the Wombo Combo video, which has millions and millions of views on YouTube.
That ain't Falco. That ain't Falco.
That would never happen today because there's like there's an expected level of professionalism now, and even looking back at like what some of the top players have said, there's a YouTube video of Armada, who's currently the best player in the world. Back when he was like 16 at a Smash tournament somewhere in America, and someone walks up to him and says,
"What do you think about Jigglypuff?"
Yay. And first of all, you never say that today. Like, especially as a top player with a sponsor, because like Armada's got a sponsor now. He's with Alliance, and you wouldn't really be able to get away with that. But in some ways, that has helped the community. Most of us didn't like that then, and especially wouldn't like that now.
We had a chance to interview Gordon Ramsay Gaming, a highly ranked League of Legends player who streams regularly on Twitch and uploads to YouTube. He talked about how he changes his gameplay style based on the audience in a method that can be referred to as the streamer's topoi, or the full list of options the streamer has in constructing the viewing experience for his or her Twitch fans.
I think the commentary itself actually keeps them there and learning and watching video after video. I think there are definitely good players out there, but then if you can't really explain what you're doing in an informative way or even just an entertaining way, I like to try and be informative and entertaining, then people aren't really going to follow you. So I definitely think to thrive with what I do, you have to kind of have a little bit of both.
So where does esports go from here? One of the challenges that esports currently faces is moving from low visibility to a high visibility state in the West. On one hand, the games themselves are culturally American, developed by Western game studios. On the other hand, the social capital of esports is concentrated in places like South Korea and Taiwan.
It's not, in America at least, really embedded in the public consciousness yet. I think that is going to happen. I think it's inevitable, and things like the Big Ten Network just picked up League of Legends, and ESPN is starting to stream some esports, and there's a whole esports section in a lot of sports websites like ESPN now. Red Bull is starting to sponsor people, and Red Bull obviously has huge sports visibility.
There are just tons of people who watch us, and what's nice is it's not limited to just one area of the world. Literally, there are regions all around the world that play this game and just esports games in general. If I was 16 years old or around my late teens right now, I would be incredibly excited to have a chance to be part of what will probably be one of the biggest industries in entertainment, in my opinion.